Our world's coastlines are recent illusions. Beneath the familiar waves lie the drowned homelands of forgotten peoples, and the evidence is scattered across the ocean floor. This journey will reveal 20 underwater ruins that suggest lost Ice Age civilizations, challenging the very timeline of human history. By the end, you will see our planet's past in a completely new light, where myth and geology collide. How did entire societies vanish beneath the sea, and what profound truths do their silent stones hold about our own story? What forgotten chapter of humanity is waiting to be read in the language of sunken stone? 20,000 years ago, our planet wore a different face, one almost unrecognizable to us today. This was the peak of the last great ice age, a time scientists call the last glacial maximum. Imagine, if you can, a world where so much of the planet's water was frozen into colossal sheets of ice, sometimes miles thick, that the oceans themselves shrank back. Sea levels were not just a little lower, they were staggeringly so, plunging more than 120 meters below where they rest today. This single fact changes everything. Where today we sail ships across blue water, there were once vast, open plains, rolling landscapes, and river valleys teeming with life. Entire continental shelves, the gently sloping edges of the continents, were high and dry, exposed to the sun and wind. This created incredible land bridges like the one known as Beringia, which connected Asia to the Americas, a highway for life and, crucially, for human migration. The coastlines of every continent reached out dozens, even hundreds of kilometers farther than they do now. This was not a marginal change. The entire human habitat. For thousands of years, generations of people lived, hunted, and built their communities on these fertile coastal plains, lands that today are utterly lost beneath the waves. The melting of the ice was not always a slow, gentle process either. Research suggests there were likely episodes of rapid collapse, what geologists term meltwater pulses, where immense volumes of ice gave way in a geological instant. These events could have sent walls of water rushing across those low-lying plains, transforming familiar homelands into a rising, unstoppable sea within a span of years, not millennia. This is the essential, dramatic backdrop to our entire search. To find a sophisticated structure on the ocean floor is not to find a shipwreck, it is to find a footprint in a place we were told no one could have walked. It forces us to ask who lived on those sunken continental shelves when the world was colder and the seas were held at bay. Their story, and the remnants of their world, begins with this profound geological truth, a truth we can now see etched in stone beneath the sea, starting with a discovery that ignited this entire field of mystery. The tension between a lost world and the one we know crystallizes off the coast of Bimini. Here, in the clear, sun-drenched waters of the Bahamas, a diver glides over something profoundly out of place. Stretching for nearly half a mile across the sandy seafloor is a formation of massive, rectangular limestone blocks, each one fitting neatly against the next in a long, deliberate line that curves gently before vanishing into the sand. It looks for all the world like an ancient, submerged roadway, a path leading from nowhere to nowhere, silent and enigmatic. This is the Bimini Road, discovered in 1968, and it instantly became a lightning rod for one of history's greatest legends, hailed by some as the first physical proof of Atlantis. The visual is undeniable and compelling, a geometric pattern laid down by an intelligence that understood order and purpose. Proponents of its artificial origin point to the block's seemingly precise angles, their uniform depth, and what some interpret as tool marks on the weathered stone, arguing that nature simply does not work in such clean, repetitive lines. Yet, mainstream science offers a different, more prosaic narrative. Geologists identify the material as beach rock, a type of sandstone that naturally forms in shallow tropical waters. They explain that the apparent blocks are the result of a process called jointing, where the rock fractures along natural planes as it settles and erodes, creating these deceptively neat rectangles. It is, they say, a fascinating geological coincidence, a trick of perception played out on a grand scale. The Bimini Road stands as the perfect introduction to the central debate that shadows every discovery we will explore, the eternal question whispered by the sea: is this the work of human hands or merely the slow, patient artistry of geology? This tension between two possible truths, each with its own compelling evidence, is the very heart of our search, and it only deepens as we journey to a place where the stones form not a road but a city. The debate over natural wonder or human creation finds its most dramatic stage not in the Atlantic, but in the Pacific, off the remote tip of Japan. Yonaguni Monument is a leviathan of stone, a sprawling, terraced formation that rises from the seafloor like a sunken citadel. To swim around its sheer cliffs and massive platforms is to feel dwarfed by a scale that seems to defy random chance. The structure, discovered by a local diver in 1986, presents a series of breathtaking features: right angles that appear too precise, terraces that look like giant steps, and deep, straight channels that cut across the rock as if designed for water to flow. At its summit, a flat platform offers a staggering view, and nearby, two colossal pillars of stone stand side by side, an arrangement that feels profoundly deliberate. The most striking detail for many is a feature often called the turtle, a large, flat rock with a distinct, raised shape that uncannily resembles the carved stone turtles found in ancient Okinawan culture. For marine geologist Masaki Kimura, who has spent decades studying the site, these elements are not accidents. He argues passionately that the monument is the remnant of a ceremonial complex, possibly a step pyramid or a fortress, constructed over 10,000 years ago when this area was above water. He points to the cumulative weight of the geometry, the presence of what look like quarry marks, and the alignment of features that seem to serve a purpose beyond erosion. Skeptics, however, hear a different story told by the stone. They note that the bedrock here is sandstone, which naturally fractures along horizontal and vertical planes as tectonic forces lift and tilt it. The powerful currents of the area, they explain, can scour and shape rock into surprisingly clean lines over millennia. Even noted geologist Robert Schoch, after diving the site, concluded its core was likely a natural formation, though he left the door open to a fascinating possibility that ancient people might have found this remarkable natural structure and enhanced it, carving the turtle or widening the steps for their own use. Yonaguni does not offer an easy answer. Instead, it presents a profound and beautiful puzzle, forcing us to ask where nature's artistry ends and human intention begins. If even a fraction of its form was shaped by hands, it speaks of a society with the vision and capability to work on a monumental scale in a time we have barely begun to comprehend. This question of immense, forgotten scale pulls our gaze westward to a discovery in the Indian Ocean that suggests an antiquity so deep it rewrites the map of human civilization. The legend of a city reclaimed by the sea is not unique to the Atlantic, but finds one of its most enduring echoes in the sacred texts of India. In the murky, sediment-choked waters of the Gulf of Combat, a discovery was made that seemed to pull myth directly into the realm of tangible evidence. During a routine marine survey in 2001, sonar equipment painted a startling picture of the seafloor, revealing what appeared to be the geometric outlines of a vast, submerged settlement, complete with structures, grids of streets, and a drainage system. For many, this was an immediate and electrifying correlation, the potential discovery of Dwarka, the legendary city of Lord Krishna, described in ancient Hindu scriptures as a magnificent, fortified capital that was ultimately swallowed by the ocean following Krishna's departure from the world. The connection between faith and archaeology here is profound and deeply felt. Subsequent explorations retrieved artifacts from the site, including pieces of pottery, stone tools, beads, and even fragments of material that some researchers suggested could be evidence of ancient construction. The most controversial claim, however, came from the dating of these objects. Initial analyses, using a method that measures the minute amounts of carbon in certain materials, suggested some items could be as old as 9,500 years, a time frame that would place this settlement firmly in a period of much lower sea levels and far older than conventional timelines for urban civilization in the region. This dating is and remains hotly contested within the archaeological community. Critics point to the challenging conditions of the site, where strong currents constantly stir up the seabed, potentially mixing artifacts from many different time periods. They argue the objects could have been washed from much later settlements on land, or that the dating methods themselves are unreliable for samples taken from such a dynamic marine environment. The potential mention of human remains within the context of the site, often discussed in broader reports, is handled with the utmost cultural and scientific respect, framed within the ongoing study of how such a place was used and what it meant to those who might have lived there. Whether the Gulf of Combat site is the historical Dwarka or not is perhaps less important than the powerful pattern it reveals. Here, a detailed cultural memory, preserved for millennia in scripture and song, describes a specific cataclysm, a great city lost beneath the waves. The discovery of any ancient, sunken settlement in that very region suggests these stories are not mere fantasy, but could be a form of long-term historical transmission, an echo of a real event so traumatic it was woven into the very fabric of a culture's identity. This theme of myth holding memory becomes a guiding thread as we cross the world to another coastline, where a different set of stones tells a similar story of a world that vanished beneath the tide. The deep ocean guards its secrets with immense pressure and perpetual darkness, but sometimes technology allows us a fleeting glimpse into the abyss. Off the western coast of Cuba, a team of researchers made a sonar pass in 2001 that returned an image so startling it has fueled debate for over 2 decades. On their screens, sprawled across a desolate plateau more than 600 meters down, appeared a series of startlingly geometric shapes. The sonar shadows suggested vast, rectilinear structures, some arranged in circular patterns, with what looked like wide avenues and even pyramidal forms. The sheer scale and apparent symmetry of the formation immediately sparked a profound question. What could possibly create such order at a depth where sunlight never reaches? If these shapes are indeed the ruins of a city, the implications are not just surprising, they are earth-shattering. Conventional geology tells us that sea levels have never been low enough to expose this seabed to the open air, not during the last ice age, and not for hundreds of thousands of years prior. For this plateau to have been dry land, it would require a cataclysm of a different order, perhaps a massive and rapid subsidence of the entire landmass itself, a sinking of a continent or a large island in a dramatic geological event. This places the potential age of any structure there in an almost unimaginable time frame, possibly more than 50,000 years old, a period when mainstream archaeology tells us modern humans were just beginning their great global migration, with no known capability for large-scale stone construction. The Cuban underwater city, as it is often called, exists in a realm of tantalizing possibility. Mainstream science urges extreme caution, pointing out that sonar images can be deceiving, and that natural geological processes, like fractured bedrock or ancient lava flows, can produce remarkably artificial-looking formations. Without physical artifacts or direct exploration by submersibles, the images remain shadows open to interpretation. Yet they persist as one of the deepest and most compelling enigmas on our list. They force us to confront the limits of our historical models and to ask whether the true cradle of civilization might not lie on the continents we know, but on vast, sunken platforms now hidden in the abyss. This idea of searching for lost landscapes rather than just lost cities becomes our next focus as we consider the tools that allow us to map the ghostly outlines of a drowned world. The ocean floor holds more than just the ghosts of cities. It cradles objects of pure, baffling mystery. In the cold, dark waters of the Baltic Sea, a team of Swedish treasure hunters scanning for shipwrecks in 2011 found something that defied all their expectations. Their sonar image revealed a perfect circular object resting on the seabed, roughly 60 meters across, with a long, straight track or trench stretching behind it for hundreds of meters. Its shape was so uncanny, so geometrically precise, that it was immediately nicknamed the Baltic Sea Anomaly, and to many eyes it bore a startling resemblance to the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. This was no collection of blocks or vague outlines. This was a singular, bizarre artifact. When divers finally reached it, they reported a surface that felt rough, almost like concrete, but with a strange metallic sheen. They described right angles, what appeared to be stair-like steps leading up its side, and even circular holes that looked purposefully placed. The object seemed to sit atop a large pillar, and that mysterious trail behind it suggested it had skidded or dragged across the muddy bottom. The immediate, sensational theory was, of course, extraterrestrial, a crashed UFO silently waiting in the abyss. Yet, science offers more terrestrial, though no less fascinating, explanations. Geologists point out that the Baltic Sea basin was heavily sculpted by glaciers during the last ice age. They propose the anomaly could be a rare and unusual glacial deposit, a massive nodule of granite or other dense rock that was plucked up by moving ice and then dropped in this lonely spot as the glacier retreated. Other researchers suggest it might be an extremely rare form of underwater volcanic formation, where gas bubbles and mineral-rich fluids created this odd, rounded shape over eons. The lingering question is one of symmetry. Nature is capable of incredible shapes, but such a perfect circle with apparent structural features pushes the limits of geological coincidence. The Baltic Sea Anomaly may not be a ruin in the traditional sense, but it serves a crucial purpose in our exploration. It underscores that the seafloor remains one of our planet's last great frontiers, a place where we are still just beginning to catalogue its wonders and its oddities. It reminds us that the deep can hide things that fit no known category, objects that challenge our need to classify and explain. This encounter with the purely enigmatic gently steers us back from speculative edges toward the firmer, yet no less mysterious, ground of ancient human endeavor, to a sea where the ruins are unquestionably real and whisper of a cultural collapse still felt today. The shadowy forms on a sonar screen become undeniable reality at a place called Pavlopetri. Here, off the southern coast of Greece, the sea does not hide a mystery, it preserves a museum. Pavlopetri is the world's oldest known submerged city, a fully mapped urban landscape resting in just a few meters of crystal-clear water. This is not a debate between geology and archaeology. It is archaeology in its purest form, a time capsule from the Bronze Age, roughly 5,000 years old, that sank beneath the waves and was forgotten. Walking through its streets requires only a mask and fins, for the entire town plan is laid out on the sandy bottom. You can swim along the main road, glide over the foundations of homes and workshops, and peer into central courtyards where families once gathered. Archaeologists have identified distinct neighborhoods, a possible central plaza, and even a complex system of water management channels. Most poignant are the dozens of stone-lined tombs integrated within the city itself, offering a silent testament to the community that lived and honored their ancestors here. Pavlopetri provides something invaluable, a concrete, undeniable blueprint of how a sophisticated coastal settlement interacts with the sea and ultimately how it succumbs. We know from geological data that this part of the Mediterranean coast is slowly sinking, a process likely accelerated by local earthquakes. The rising waters here were not a sudden cataclysm but a gradual encroachment, perhaps over generations, giving people time to adapt before finally abandoning their homes to the waves. This grounded reality is the anchor for all our more speculative journeys. Pavlopetri proves beyond any doubt that sea level rise has claimed advanced human societies, preserving their footprints in the silt. It shows us exactly what we should be looking for in deeper, older waters, a tangible model of a drowned world. If a city this complex could be lost and then found from the Bronze Age, it fuels the compelling question: what much older settlements from those vast Ice Age coastal plains might still be waiting for us on the continental shelves? This search for older footprints leads us from the clear waters of the Mediterranean to a much larger and more enigmatic canvas, the sprawling shelf of a continent known for its ancient mysteries. The clear waters of the Mediterranean hold more than just one sunken city. Off the coast of Malta, a nation synonymous with ancient, enigmatic stone temples, the sea guards another layer of its prehistoric story. Near the modern town of Sliema, resting on a sandy underwater shelf, divers encounter a sight that feels hauntingly familiar: large, rectangular stone blocks, some weighing many tons, scattered across the seafloor. Their edges are softened by millennia of marine growth, but their geometric forms are unmistakable against the natural curves of the rocky bottom. These are not random boulders, they are megaliths cut and shaped by human hands, now lying in silent disarray beneath the waves. Given Malta's incredible surface archaeology, this underwater discovery carries profound weight. On land, the islands are dotted with spectacular temple complexes like Haga Kim and Mnajdra, structures built from colossal limestone blocks over 6,000 years ago by a culture that mastered stonework long before the pyramids of Egypt. These people created sacred spaces aligned with the solstices, carved intricate spiral motifs, and then, mysteriously, vanished from history. The temples we can visit today are only part of the story. Sea levels around Malta have risen significantly since the temple builders' era, swallowing up low-lying coastal areas. It is not just plausible but highly likely that some of their constructions now lie underwater. The Sliema stones suggest that the known temple complexes were not isolated mountaintop sanctuaries, but possibly the inland anchors of a much larger ritual landscape, one that stretched down to the water's edge and beyond. Imagine a processional way that began at a shore temple, now submerged, leading up to the magnificent structures we see today. These sunken megaliths transform our understanding of Malta's past from a collection of spectacular ruins into a connected, living geography, a cultural map that has been partially erased by the rising sea. They whisper that we are only seeing the high ground of a lost civilization, and that its full spiritual and architectural footprint extends into the blue depths that now surround the islands. This pattern of a drowned cultural landscape does not belong to the Mediterranean alone, for on the other side of the world, an entire city of legend is slowly emerging from the mud of a great river. The silent stones of Malta give way to a different kind of message, one not carved in blocks but etched directly into the living rock. Off the remote coast of Western Australia, in the stunning Dampier archipelago, the sea does not hide grand architecture, but something perhaps more intimate: the sacred artwork of a culture with an unbroken lineage stretching back tens of thousands of years. Here, on the rocky shores of Murujuga, ancient Aboriginal petroglyphs, intricate engravings of animals, spiritual figures, and geometric patterns, are found in places that are now periodically submerged by the high tide. This is a ruin of a different order, not of a building but of a cultural canvas. These artworks were not created to be underwater. They were painstakingly pecked into stone on dry land, in places where people lived, taught, and conducted ceremony. The fact that the sea now washes over them is a direct physical testament to a changing world. Each high tide that covers a carving of a kangaroo or a mythical being is a quiet confirmation of a profound geological truth, that this land has not always been at the water's edge. These engravings, some of which researchers suggest could be many thousands of years old, offer perhaps the most unambiguous evidence on our entire list. They are not ambiguous formations open to geological debate. They are unquestionably human, and their current predicament is a direct result of post-Ice Age sea level rise. They represent a global phenomenon we are only beginning to appreciate: the loss of sacred sites, story places, and artistic records to the encroaching ocean. This speaks not to a sudden catastrophe, but to a slow, relentless transformation of the coastline over generations, a change that required immense cultural adaptation and resilience. The Murujuga petroglyphs are a powerful reminder that the drowned landscapes we search for were not empty spaces. They were homes, hunting grounds, and galleries of memory. They guide us to look beyond just foundations and walls, and to search for the subtler cultural markers, the handprints, the tool-making sites, and the ceremonial grounds that also vanished beneath the waves, a silent testament to the deep-time human connection to coasts that are no longer there. The slow encroachment of the sea does not always erase, sometimes it preserves with astonishing fidelity. Off the coast of Israel, the seafloor cradles a time capsule so complete it feels as though the inhabitants have only just stepped away. This is Atlit Yam, a Neolithic village submerged for more than 8,000 years. Unlike the enigmatic stones of Yonaguni or the debated Sonar shadows of Cuba, there is no ambiguity here. This is a fully realized archaeological site, a stunningly intact snapshot of a moment frozen at the end of the last ice age. The layout of the village is plainly visible on the sandy bottom, a collection of rectangular stone houses, their foundations still neatly arranged. A central well, once the community's lifeblood, stands as a silent shaft. Most striking is a semicircle of massive stones, a ritual site where the community likely gathered for ceremony, their version of a sacred space looking out over a landscape that is now endless blue. The preservation is so exceptional that archaeologists have recovered organic materials rarely found on land, animal bones, plant remains, and fishing gear, painting a vivid picture of a society that expertly blended farming, animal husbandry, and fishing. Within this underwater museum, researchers made a sobering discovery: evidence within the skeletal remains of what is believed to be the world's oldest known cases of tuberculosis. This finding is handled with deep respect, framed not as a graphic detail but as a profound insight into the shared human experience across millennia. It speaks to the health challenges of a densely settled community and to the resilience of people living in a changing world. The story of Atlit Yam's end is written in its geology. Researchers found that rising sea levels did not simply flood the village, they slowly poisoned it. Saltwater intrusion seeped into the freshwater aquifer, the community's vital well turned brackish and undrinkable. Faced with the loss of their water, the people had no choice but to gather their belongings and retreat, abandoning their homes to the relentless sea. This is not a myth of a great cataclysm, but a clear, poignant, and all too relatable story of environmental change forcing migration. Atlit Yam is archaeological gold because it provides an irrefutable model. It demonstrates that sophisticated pre-agricultural and early agricultural societies were establishing permanent, complex settlements on coastlines that would later vanish entirely. If one such village exists in such pristine condition, it reinforces a powerful and logical idea that countless others, a whole archipelago of lost coastal communities, must lie hidden on the submerged shelves of the world, each holding a piece of the story we have missed. This concrete evidence of a drowned society compels us to look for others, and in the cold waters of the North Atlantic, we find not a village, but what appears to be an entire enigmatic landscape. The concrete foundations of Atlit Yam give way to a loss of an entirely different magnitude, one measured not in stone houses but in entire vanished landscapes. North Sea fishermen, hauling their nets from the cold, grey waters between Britain and the Netherlands, often pull up more than just fish. Their catches sometimes include ancient, waterlogged tree stumps, the bones of mammoths and aurochs, and curiously shaped flint tools that clearly were not made for use at sea. These artifacts are not from a sunken village but from a sunken continent, a lost European heartland known to science as Doggerland. This was not a narrow land bridge, but a vast, low-lying plain, rich with rivers, forests, marshes, and rolling hills, a territory larger than many modern European countries. For thousands of years after the last ice age, it was the thriving home to Mesolithic hunter-gatherers, a verdant paradise teeming with game and resources. These people roamed a landscape that is now the seabed of the North Sea, leaving behind the scattered traces now caught in fishing nets. Doggerland represents the ultimate scale of loss, an entire human territory and its complex ecosystems erased from the map. Its story ended not with a slow creep of water, but with a geological catastrophe. Around 8,200 years ago, a massive underwater landslide off the coast of Norway, known as the Storegga Slide, triggered a devastating tsunami that roared across this low-lying plain. Walls of water would have scoured the land, drowning forests and wildlife, and delivering a likely death blow to any communities living there. The rising seas that followed completed the job, submerging Doggerland forever. This forces a profound shift in perspective. Our understanding of prehistoric Europe, built from excavations on the current dry land, is inherently incomplete. It is the story of the people who lived on the high ground, the survivors who retreated inland. We are missing the narratives, the cultures, and the innovations of the countless communities who made their home on those fertile, now drowned plains. Doggerland is the ghost in the machine of European prehistory, a silent reminder that the map we know is a recent snapshot, and that the true cradle of many ancient peoples may lie buried beneath the waves, its story told only by fragments in a fisherman's net. The story of lost lands is not confined to the saltwater oceans. In the cold, dark freshwater of the Great Lakes, a different kind of mystery lies in wait, one that connects the deep past of North America to the silent world beneath the waves. During a routine survey of Lake Michigan's depths, sonar equipment detected something startling, a series of stone structures resting on the lake bed. Among them was a circular arrangement of large stones, a formation that immediately drew comparisons to Stonehenge, and nearby, a large, deliberate pile of rocks known as a cairn. This alone would be a fascinating discovery, but it was a detail on one of these stones that sent a shockwave through the archaeological community. On a boulder within the cairn, sonar images seemed to reveal the unmistakable outline of a mastodon, an ice-age giant that vanished from the continent over 10,000 years ago. The implications here are staggering. If these structures are verified as ancient human creations, and if that carving is authentic, it would place people in the region during a time when lake levels were much lower, and these stones would have stood on dry land, perhaps as a ceremonial site or a hunting marker. This would provide a direct, tangible link between the first peoples of North America and the magnificent megafauna they shared the continent with, a connection often discussed but rarely illustrated with such potential clarity. The Lake Michigan site forces us to expand our search beyond coastal shelves. It reminds us that vast inland seas, whose levels have also fluctuated dramatically with climate change, hold their own submerged chapters of human prehistory. These cold, freshwater depths guard secrets just as profound as any ocean trench, suggesting that the story of early human exploration and settlement in the Americas is not fully written on the land we see, but also on the lake beds we have yet to fully explore. This inland mystery finds a powerful echo thousands of miles away, where an entire city is said to sleep not under a lake, but beneath the jungle and the sea. Sometimes the sea does not offer riddles but an answer carved in stone. Resting on the seabed of the Sicilian Channel, the stretch of water between Sicily and the coast of Tunisia, lies a slab of rock that silences all debate. It is a monolith, a colossal piece of worked stone over 12 meters long, broken now into two sections, its immense weight settled into the silt. This is not a suggestive formation or a pattern open to interpretation. Its surface bears the unmistakable signature of human intention. Along its length, 3 regular, cylindrical holes have been drilled straight through the stone with a precision that speaks of skill and purpose. The shape of the block itself, with its clean, worked edges, indicates it was carefully extracted from a quarry, shaped and prepared for a specific role. Analysis suggests it was cut from its source over 9,000 years ago. To understand why that date is so revolutionary, you must erase the blue water from your mind's eye. 9 millennia ago, this precise spot on the seafloor was not underwater at all. It was a vital part of a vast, dry land bridge connecting what is now Sicily to the North African coast, a corridor for life, migration, and trade known to geologists as the Sicilian Channel. This monolith stood upright then, a towering marker in a landscape that has since vanished. It could have been a territorial boundary, a navigational beacon for early seafarers moving between the two landmasses, or perhaps a central pillar for a larger yet undiscovered structure. It is, in every sense, a smoking gun, an unequivocal piece of evidence left behind by a sophisticated people. It proves they were not just wandering hunter-gatherers in this region, but were capable of organized labor, maritime engineering, and monumental construction in an era we have long considered primitive. This single stone, resting in the silent dark, does more than hint at a lost Ice Age civilization. It provides the hard, physical proof that such societies existed on lands that are now drowned, and that their reach and ambition were far greater than our history books have ever allowed. The solid proof of the Sicilian monolith anchors our search in undeniable fact, but it also pulls our gaze westward into the deep, open heart of the Atlantic Ocean. Here, near the remote Azores archipelago, the seafloor holds shapes that ignite the most enduring legend of all. Scattered across the underwater slopes of the mid-Atlantic ridge, sonar images and diver reports have described what appear to be colossal pyramidal forms and vast, stepped platforms resting under hundreds of meters of water. Their reported scale is monumental, with some accounts suggesting structures larger than the Great Pyramids of Giza, now silent in the perpetual dark. The very location is charged with meaning, for the Azores sit atop one of the planet's most dramatic geological features, the seam that slowly pulls the Americas away from Europe and Africa. This is a realm of fire and movement where the ocean floor itself is born from volcanic upwelling. That geological reality is central to the debate. Mainstream science points directly to this violent origin, arguing these formations are almost certainly the result of successive lava flows, tectonic tilting, and the natural fracturing of basalt into angular, step-like terraces. They are spectacular natural monuments born from the Earth's inner furnace. Yet, for those who study the images closely, certain details persist as nagging questions. Some explorers report angles that seem too perfect, alignments that correspond to cardinal points, and what look like wide, flat roads leading to the bases of these underwater mountains. If even a fraction of these observations is accurate, and not a trick of perspective in the murky depths, the implications are profound. The mid-Atlantic ridge is not a static place. it is a dynamic, living spine of our planet. Geological models show that during periods of intense volcanic activity, significant portions of this ridge could have risen above sea level, creating temporary islands or even substantial landmasses in the middle of the ocean. Could such an emergent plateau have been home to a people sophisticated enough to shape the very rock of their volatile home? And could a subsequent geological collapse have sent it all back into the abyss? This possibility is what forever ties the Azores formations to the ghost of Atlantis, Plato's tale of an advanced island civilization that sank into the Atlantic in a single day and night. Whether one believes in that specific legend or not, the site forces a confrontation with a powerful idea that the most geologically active places on Earth, the very seams of the continents, might also have been the cradles and the graves of civilizations we can now only detect as shadows on a sonar screen. The debate here is not just about rocks, it is about the potential for human history to be written on pages that are constantly being subducted, melted, and rewritten by the planet itself. The vast underwater plateau of the Gulf of Cambay holds more than a single legendary city. Broader surveys across its silt-covered seabed have revealed a pattern that is far more expansive and in many ways more profound. Sonar imaging and sub-bottom profiling, technologies that peer beneath layers of sediment, have painted a picture not of isolated ruins but of an extensive, organized landscape. The scans show what appear to be large, grid-like patterns etched into the seafloor, the ghostly outlines of streets and neighborhoods arranged with clear intent. Even more compelling are the massive, blocky foundations that suggest structures of significant size, spread over a wide geographical area. This is not the footprint of a lone settlement. It hints at a connected cultural complex, a network of sites that may have functioned as a unified civilization. The potential scale here rewrites the map of ancient India. If these submerged formations are verified, they point to a sophisticated, urbanized society thriving on this now drowned coastal plain long before the great cities of the Indus Valley, like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, ever rose. This would push the timeline of complex urban development in South Asia back by thousands of years, revealing a previously unknown chapter of human achievement. The story of its end is written in the same global event we have traced across the world. As the great ice sheets melted at the close of the last ice age, the ocean basins filled and sea levels rose relentlessly. The waters of the Arabian Sea would have advanced across this low-lying terrain, not in a sudden cataclysm, but in a slow, inexorable conquest that spanned generations. The people of this complex would have watched their world gradually shrink, their farmlands turn to salt marsh, and their great foundations become islands before finally succumbing to the waves. This potential discovery forces a monumental question. Could this sunken world in the Gulf of Cambay be a precursor, even a cultural ancestor, to the later Indus Valley civilization? Did the knowledge, the architectural styles, and the social organization of these coastal people migrate inland with the rising waters, seeding the brilliance that would follow? The silent grids on the seafloor suggest that the cradle of South Asian civilization may not be buried in the dry soil of the Indus River Valley, but lies submerged, waiting for its story to be fully told. The solid geometries of the Gulf of Cambay speak a silent language of stone, but some lost worlds speak in a different tongue entirely, one of memory and story. On the island of Pohnpei in the remote Pacific, the ruins of Nan Madol rise from the mangrove swamps, a breathtaking labyrinth of 92 artificial islets built from colossal basalt logs, a city of canals often called the Venice of the Pacific. Its land-based majesty is undeniable, a testament to the Sodalor dynasty that ruled here 1,000 years ago. Yet, local oral tradition holds that Nan Madol is incomplete. For generations, elders have passed down stories of a sister city, a complementary complex of equal grandeur that once stood just offshore, now lying beneath the waves. While modern surveys have yet to confirm definitive man-made walls or platforms matching Nan Madol's construction on the nearby seafloor, the persistence of the legend is itself a form of evidence, a cultural echo of a profound truth. This whispered 15th ruin exists not in stone but in the collective memory of the people. Across the vast expanse of the Pacific, from Micronesia to Polynesia, a common thread runs through countless oral histories, tales of great lands that sank beneath the ocean, of ancestral homelands swallowed by the rising sea. These are not mere fables, they are likely the long-term narrative records of catastrophic environmental change, the traumatic experience of post-Ice Age sea level rise encoded in myth and genealogy. The legend of Nan Madol's drowned twin reminds us that the physical search for foundations and tools is only one half of the investigation. The myths of ocean peoples who have lived intimately with the sea for millennia may be direct, poetic translations of real geological events, a way of preserving the memory of lost coastlines and displaced communities across hundreds of generations. When a culture's origin story begins with a great migration from a sunken land, we are not just hearing a creation myth, we may be listening to an ancient history lesson passed down from those who witnessed the world flood. This powerful intersection of archaeology and oral tradition expands our search from the seafloor to the human heart, proving that a ruin can live as vibrantly in a story as it does in stone. The legends of sunken cities find their most intimate echo not in grand architecture, but in a sacred gallery of art, 37 meters beneath the turquoise surface of the Mediterranean, near the modern coast of Marseille. A diver navigates a narrow, upward-sloping tunnel, a flooded passageway that feels like a journey back through time. Breaking the surface inside a cavern of total darkness, his light reveals a sight that steals the breath, not of stonework but of spirit. The walls of the Cosca Cave are alive with the handprints and visions of Ice Age artists, a breathtaking collection of Paleolithic paintings created over 19,000 years ago. Here, horses, bison, and marine animals like seals and what may be penguins gallop and swim across the limestone canvas, rendered with a graceful, confident line that speaks of deep observation and reverence. This is our 16th ruin, a profound cultural sanctuary, not built from stone but chosen for its seclusion and sanctity. Its very existence tells a silent, monumental story. When those artists gathered here to mix their pigments and trace these forms, the entrance to this cave was not underwater at all. It opened onto a dry, grassy plain, a landscape that stretched miles out to where the sea now lies, a world now entirely lost. The rising waters of the post-Ice Age millennia did not destroy the art. They simply sealed the door, placing a permanent, watery lock on a chapter of human expression. Cosca provides something invaluable, a direct, dated connection between a specific moment in prehistory and the relentless change of the coastline. It is a time capsule with a known expiration date, proving that the cultural and spiritual geography of our ancestors was immeasurably more vast than the dry land we inhabit today. For every painted cave we have found in the hills of France or Spain, there could be dozens more whose entrances are now submerged beneath the coastal waters, their galleries intact but inaccessible, holding untold stories of the human journey. This cave is a haunting reminder that the greatest losses to the sea may not be cities, but the sacred places where early humanity first tried to understand their world and left their mark for the future. That search for meaning, preserved against all odds in the silent dark, leads us to a discovery where the stones themselves seem to form a perfect, purposeful pattern, pointing toward the sky from the seafloor. The same sea that sealed the Cosca Cave can also, in moments of immense violence, tear back the veil. In December 2004, a titanic earthquake in the Indian Ocean unleashed a tsunami of almost unimaginable power, a wall of water that reshaped coastlines and altered history. Yet in the catastrophic aftermath of the ancient port of Mahabalipuram on India's southeastern coast, the retreating waves performed an unexpected act of revelation. As the tsunami pulled vast quantities of sand out to sea, local fishermen and observers reported something startling emerging from the shallows: the outlines of stone structures, what appeared to be man-made walls, and rows of large blocks that had not been visible for centuries, perhaps millennia. This event breathed startling new life into one of India's most enduring coastal legends. For generations, the people of Mahabalipuram have spoken of the 7 pagodas. Today, visitors see only one magnificent example: the iconic shore temple, a beautiful granite complex carved in the 8th century that stands defiantly against the ocean spray. The legend insists this temple was never alone, that it was once the lone survivor of 6 other magnificent pagodas, a glorious city of temples that extended far out into what is now the bay, before being consumed by the sea in a great cataclysm. The tsunami's brief, brutal scouring of the seabed offered a tantalizing glimpse that this story may be more than myth. It suggested that the visible shore temple could be just the inland remnant of a much larger sacred complex, with older foundations and sister structures now permanently submerged. Subsequent archaeological surveys have indeed identified anomalous stone formations on the seafloor, though definitive interpretation remains part of an ongoing scientific process. Whether these are natural bedrock or the remains of ancient Gopuram towers is a question for careful research, but the profound lesson of Mahabalipuram is not about a single discovery, it is about the mechanism of discovery itself. It demonstrates how a natural disaster, in a tragic and paradoxical twist, can serve as a momentary archaeological lens, shifting sediments to expose what time and tide have hidden. This site perfectly embodies the bridge between cultural memory and material evidence. It shows how a persistent local legend, passed down for over 1,000 years, can act as a historical guidepost, pointing researchers to where they might look beneath the waves. Across the world, from the Mediterranean to the Pacific, many of the most venerated coastal temples and sacred sites sit precisely at the modern water's edge. Mahabalipuram urges us to consider a compelling possibility: that these places of worship were not built at the ocean's limit by chance, but were deliberately positioned there because they held deep ancestral significance, perhaps marking the spiritual center of lands that had already been lost, or built upon the drowned foundations of even older holy sites. The sea here is not just a backdrop, it is an integral part of the temple's story and identity. The legends of coastal temples find a quiet echo far from any ocean, in the still, deep waters of a Wisconsin lake. Rock Lake holds a mystery that has rippled through local lore for over a century. Beneath its dark surface, early divers and modern sonar scans have described a series of unusual formations, low, rounded mounds of stone that appear to have unnaturally straight edges and angular corners. Some accounts, often sensationalized, have described them as submerged pyramids or temples, structures that would imply a sophisticated, ancient presence in the heart of North America long before recorded history. The reality, as with so many of these sites, is likely more nuanced but no less fascinating for understanding our past. Geologists point to the lake's origin in the wake of the last glaciers. The formations could very well be natural glacial moraines, piles of rock and debris pushed into place by the immense ice sheets as they retreated, their shapes later smoothed and obscured by millennia of silt and lake sedimentation. Another compelling, more human-centered theory suggests they might be ancient fish weirs, deliberately constructed stone alignments built by early indigenous peoples to corral and catch fish in the shallower waters of a younger, smaller lake. Such structures are known from other archaeological sites and represent a profound understanding of local ecology and resource management. The possibility also remains that they served a ceremonial purpose, a sacred geometry placed in the water for spiritual reasons now lost to time. The enduring significance of Rock Lake, much like the site in Lake Michigan, is the powerful reminder it offers. Our search for lost Ice Age worlds cannot be confined to the continental shelves of the oceans. The great melt that flooded coastlines also dramatically transformed inland waterways. As the glaciers disappeared, they left behind a reshaped world of countless new lakes, rivers, and basins, many of which have seen their own water levels rise and fall over the millennia. Early human sites that were once on dry land, whether seasonal camps, fishing stations, or ritual grounds, could now be hidden not under salt water, but under the fresh, deep water of inland seas and lakes. Rock Lake broadens the map of our inquiry immensely, suggesting that the ghosts of early America may be sleeping in the most unexpected of places, in the quiet, dark waters we pass by without a second thought. This expansion from ocean to continent, from salt to fresh water, prepares us for a final, breathtaking possibility, one that suggests these scattered ruins are not isolated tragedies, but fragments of a single, forgotten world. The tools of a lost world are not always grand monuments, but the quiet, practical objects of everyday survival. In the murky tidal waters of the Solent, the strait separating mainland England from the Isle of Wight, fishermen and archaeologists have recovered a different kind of treasure, not gold or silver, but stone. Hundreds upon hundreds of meticulously worked flint tools, blades, and scrapers have been lifted from the seabed, each one a frozen moment of human ingenuity. These artifacts, some dating back more than 8,000 years, are the 19th ruin on our journey, a different category of evidence altogether. They do not form a wall or a pyramid, but what archaeologists term a lithic scatter, the accumulated debris of a vibrant, long-term occupation. Each flint nodule, struck with precise skill to create a sharp edge, tells a story of a task completed, a meal prepared, a hide scraped clean. Together, they paint a picture of a community not through its architecture, but through the intimate rhythm of its daily life. This was not always a seascape. During the Mesolithic period, this entire area was a lush, inland river valley, a tributary system of a much larger river that drained into a distant coastline. The people who lived here hunted in the forests, fished in the rivers, and gathered resources from a fertile plain that stretched for miles. Their home was a thriving ecosystem, now completely inundated by the rising waters of the English Channel. The sheer density of the finds is what makes the Solent scatter so powerful. This is not a single lost tool dropped from a boat. It is a vast, continuous carpet of human activity spread across a drowned landscape. It transforms our understanding of the seafloor from a barren wasteland into a submerged archaeological site of immense importance, a place where every trawl net or core sample might bring up another piece of the puzzle. These flints are the incontrovertible proof we have been searching for. While debates may rage over the origins of a pyramidal shape or a wall-like formation, a crafted stone tool is unambiguous. It is a direct signature of human presence, a fingerprint in flint. The Solent scatter reminds us that the most compelling evidence for lost Ice Age civilizations may not be the towering ruins we imagine, but the humble, scattered artifacts of the people themselves. These silent stones turn modern fishing grounds into the hunting grounds of the deep past, and they offer a profound truth that the footprints of a drowned world are often found not in grand impressions, but in the tiny, sharp fragments of a life once lived on dry land. The flint tools scattered across the English Channel are individual notes, but our final destination is an entire lost symphony. Recent geological studies have revealed a profound truth about the Persian Gulf. Today, it is a shallow, saltwater sea, but during the last ice age, it was something entirely different, a vast, fertile basin cradled between the rivers of Mesopotamia and the mountains of Iran. Fed by the mighty Tigris and Euphrates, along with other now vanished rivers, this was not a gulf but a lush, watered oasis, a verdant paradise scientists call the Gulf Oasis. For thousands of years, as much of the world was gripped by ice, this sheltered lowland would have been a refuge, a Garden of Eden teeming with life and almost certainly human populations. These communities would have thrived along its rivers and lakes, developing their own cultures in a place we now only associate with blue water and arid coastlines. Their world ended not with a whimper but with a roar. As the great ice sheets melted, sea levels in the Indian Ocean began their relentless climb. Around 8,000 years ago, the rising waters finally breached the natural sill at the Strait of Hormuz. What followed was not a gentle flooding, but a catastrophic inundation. Seawater would have poured into the low-lying basin, transforming the freshwater lakes and rivers into a brackish, then fully marine, environment within a span that, geologically speaking, was the blink of an eye. The land disappeared and the Persian Gulf was born, drowning an entire prehistoric landscape. This brings us to our 20th and final ruin, which is less a specific structure and more a breathtaking frontier. While definitive, widely reported submerged buildings have not yet been catalogued on its seafloor, the geological and climatic logic is overwhelming. This vast, shallow sea, covering an area larger than many countries, almost certainly conceals the remains of those early settlements. The mud and silt of the Gulf floor likely hold the stone foundations of villages, the fragments of ancient tools, and the resting places of a people who witnessed their world vanish beneath the waves. The Persian Gulf, therefore, represents the ultimate promise and the greatest challenge of this entire field. It is a speculative ruin on a continental scale, a potential cradle of early human culture that was erased from the map before history, as we know it, even began. Its discovery would not be about finding a single city, but about mapping a lost world, a complete chapter of the human story written on a sunken continent. It asks us to look at a familiar sea and see, in our mind's eye, the rolling hills, the flowing rivers, and the hearts of the first people who might have called it home. From the debated stones of Bimini to the confirmed streets of Pavlopetri, the evidence forms a mosaic of profound loss. This journey across 20 submerged sites reveals not a collection of random anomalies, but a hauntingly consistent pattern, a story written in sunken stone and scattered tools. The rising seas at the close of the last ice age did far more than redraw the map. They performed a quiet, global act of historical erasure. Vast, fertile coastal plains, once teeming with human life, became the barren continental shells we know today. The societies that thrived there, with their monuments, their homes, and their sacred art, were slowly pushed inland or utterly consumed, their achievements submerged beneath the very element that had sustained them. While healthy skepticism remains the bedrock of scientific inquiry, the cumulative weight of these discoveries, from the unequivocal monolith in the Sicilian Channel to the intimate flint scatter in the Solent, urges us to reconsider the timeline of human ambition. We are left with a powerful, unsettling possibility that our conventional narrative of civilization's slow, linear rise from scattered hunter-gatherers to city builders may be missing entire volumes. Those volumes now rest on the ocean floor. The greatest enduring mystery, then, may not be whether sophisticated Ice Age cultures existed, but how many of their stories are lost to us forever, resting in the silent dark where light and memory cannot reach. Each new sonar scan, each artifact pulled from the silt, is a chance to recover a sentence, a paragraph of that drowned library of human experience. If this exploration of our planet's hidden past has intrigued you, consider joining our community for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. We would love to hear your thoughts. Which of these underwater ruins do you find most compelling? Share your perspective in the comments below.